Okay, folks, this is Greg Leifel over at the Sanfilippo Estate. Have our artist spotlight today, and we have a wonderfully talented and beautiful artist named Audrey Johnson. She's a mezzo soprano. She has performed at Sanfilippo a number of times, and she had a wonderful program scheduled with us this year, and it's called Of Thee I Sing is her project. And the program was about the 19th Amendment, the centennial of the 19th Amendment. So please welcome Audrey Johnson.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's wonderful to be here. Always great to see you.
Lovely to see you too. I want to sort of get right into it. You have this program about American heritage and the 19th Amendment. And what got you interested in going in this direction with your singing? Because you typically do operas.
Yes, absolutely. And, I can definitely say I have been so fortunate and I'm so grateful for all of the experiences that I've had as an opera singer. And one of them actually gave me the opportunity to move to Germany for many years, which was absolutely a wonderful experience. You really cannot compare that to anything. You really just have to go and be there and immerse yourself. And so being fortunate enough to be able to do that was huge. I love the language and the people, and just being there was a wonderful experience that I will never forget. But I will say, I was there for almost 5 years. And towards the end there, there were things that you just miss about your native culture, and things that I realized were just naturally American, things that we all share, no matter how seemingly different we think we may be. And so I gained a whole new appreciation for these things, and honestly for my fellow citizens. And so I decided that upon my return to the United States, that I really wanted to channel my artistic focus towards the perpetuation and support of American music, and really wanted to do that through our history, because I just felt, our history has so much to teach us about, who we are, where we've come from. And there's so many things within our history that really are inspiring, that we can be proud of. And, we can also really learn together from our past mistakes and make that commitment as a people together to make the right choices going forward. And what I found was, through it all, music, and honestly, especially vocal music, there's something so special about the marrying of words to music, that, this has been there since our country's inception and before, to provide commentary on what was going on. It served as a source of this unifying inspiration to those that were fighting for what they believed in, for what they were, what they felt was right. And, I think nothing can bring history and our heritage to life in the way that music can. And especially going through and researching and uncovering so many hidden gems that have led me to this inaugural concert, I can really personally attest to this feeling of being transported, back in time into the lives of these heroes and heroines through the music that was a part of their own lives. And that is what Of Thee I Sing is all about. So, I also really, during this time in Germany and thinking about, what kind of performances, as I was kind of reflecting back through my career, what were the performances that were the most meaningful to me, that really were close to my heart, that I still have as the most special. And I realized that it was the ones that allowed me the most intimate connection, that most direct connection to the audience through music. And certainly my experiences with the Sanfilippo Foundation, singing at the estate, have fallen into that category. When I asked myself this question of, Audrey, think about this, and what really has been the most important and meaningful for you? And images of my performing at the Sanfilippo estate immediately came to mind. They really are singular experiences, because at the same time you have this incredible estate with amazing mechanical instruments. It's just an incredible venue, unlike anything else in the world. And yet at the same time, you're a guest in the Sanfilippo's home, which is such a, a warm and very personal experience. And to sing for such an audience that's there to learn, to become immersed in all of these amazing things, and also to become immersed in the music that they came to hear. And normally also they're there because this event would be for sponsoring a charity or a nonprofit. And so you have all of these things working together to form just a really singular experience. So I know that for those of you that have not yet been to a performance at the Sanfilippo estate, it's a little bit hard to describe, but for those of you that have been there, I think you know exactly what I am trying to express. It really is something that you have to be present for, to experience. And I just cannot wait until it's once again safe for us to have these live in-person performances once again, because they are truly so needed. We all, I think, are in need of that art and of that communal experience of music. So here's to when things can reopen.
Absolutely.
And when I first started this Of the I Sing, I had so many ideas for concerts. I have one in the works for Ellis Island. I have one in the works for the Revolutionary War, different things of that nature. And I just couldn't quite decide where to start until I learned that this year, 2020, is our centennial year of the 19th Amendment, which is the amendment that gave women the right to vote in this country. And so, of course, immediately the women's suffrage concert moved to the front burner. And it has been honestly, it has been the most fulfilling, complete, from the research. So you have the scholarly academic side, to singing these songs, to learning the stories of these past heroes and heroines. It has been the most artistically fulfilling experience of my career. So I am just so excited to have found this platform for myself that I really feel that I can give and give as much as I possibly can as an artist.
Yeah. Well, when you told me what you were doing in terms of educating people through song, it's just part of what the Sanfilippo Foundation does. And it was just natural. We have to bring you in, and the timing with the election coming up couldn't have been better. Women's issues on the forefront, everything just sort of fell together until the pandemic.
Right.
But the great thing is you picked up the ball even after that. And now you have the program. Well, we can't show it to you this year. You've put together a program, and can you tell a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So I feel that this program really, it has everything. There's something for everyone. And so first of all, when I started to delve into the music that was involved in the women's suffrage movement, I had no idea all of the different kinds of music that was involved. And I think, the first thing to really remember is, and the women's suffrage movement, we would say it officially started in 1848, because that was the Seneca Falls Women's Rights Convention. That was the first ever women's rights convention in this country. And so historians, kind of use that as a pinpoint for when this movement began. And so if you think about the kind of music and the kind of entertainment that people had at that time, most people had a family piano, and that really took the form of the entertainment that we have today in the form of television and online streaming. And so what you would have would be all of these pieces that were written, that people would just pick up a new song, a new piece of sheet music to play around the family piano. And oftentimes these were contemporary commentaries, on what was going on. And so you have so many pieces that were both kind of for or against the suffrage movement. And I just think it's so fun. When I was looking through these pieces, I could just imagine, this piece being played, and maybe, the father thinking disapprovingly perhaps of suffrage, and maybe the young ladies, and maybe even the mother, thinking, actually, maybe there's something to this. So just all of those different things that can be involved with those kind of so-called parlor songs. Additionally, what we had were a lot of pieces called contrafacts. And a contrafact is a piece that is created by setting new text to a familiar melody that was previously written. And this kind of song creation, it's ages old, since the dawn of time, since the first song was written, and then, the second person set new words to that melody. It's been going on, but certainly this works particularly well with protests because, you already have the piece essentially half learned. Everybody already knows the melody, and so it's just a matter of setting this new text. And so also, that's going to help tremendously cutting down costs for printing because you don't have to print the sheet music. You just print the words, which takes up a lot less space. But what I really found the most fascinating about this kind of song is that, it's not just that they would arbitrarily select these melodies that just happen to fit, a syllabic structure for the text that they were writing. The melody carried with it the old words. These were songs that people really knew and had related to. And so what you'll find is that these pieces, these songs, were very strategically selected so that even as a person was hearing this new suffrage song, they had this kind of echo of the old piece. And, this old piece would be something that they had a sentimental attachment to. And so it really helped to bring people to the cause in a way that maybe they weren't even aware of. So when I kind of discovered that additional layer to these songs, I thought, oh, wow, this is really interesting stuff. And then the final kind of piece that we have within this program that I'm so proud of is that we actually have 4 brand new compositions. I commissioned 2 female composers to write 2 songs each for me. And the text that they set, speaking of text, are to 4 primary sources that I felt were just really crucial in telling this story. I'll give you just one example. This entire concert opens in a foreshadowing kind of a way with Abigail Adams' famous letter that she wrote to her husband John in 1776 before the Constitution was written, actually as it was being written, in which she says to him, I would advise you to remember the ladies, right, when you're forming these new code of laws, because we will not forever sit idly by and allow, to not have a voice or representation. We will foment a rebellion. And just how foreshadowing that was of the entire movement. I just felt those words had to be included. And, I also have found it's uncanny the way that when you have words and they're set to a melody, it carries that whole phrase for a person into their minds, and it will come back to you. When I was learning the song that this composer wrote for me, it was just lovely because during my day, in and out of my head would float Abigail Adams' words, and just kind of on this melody. And I thought, this is going to be such a special way to really bring these words to life. So I just am so excited for this program, and to hopefully next year to be able to share that with all of you live at the estate.
Well, we look forward to that. I'm reminded, having seen Hamilton recently, that he worked the women part into his little show as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little commentary part in there about having women in the sequel. So it's just really interesting to me that the movement was more organized than you would think, and that people are doing songs and they thought it through to utilize things that people knew and to save money on printing sheet music. To me, that's so fascinating. That's part of the history. We wanted to bring it to our audience because we teach history. Our whole place is history. The women's movement started a little bit before what we have in our collection, 1848. It's a little bit early for us, but it came to fruition, and here we are today. Mm-hmm. And, still working on it. But as your program is titled, we've come a long way, ladies.
Yeah.
So we'll have a link at the end of this video, so you can see the trailer for this. We would have loved to bring it to you this year, but we're going to get Audrey on the schedule for 2021, And then hopefully, folks, if you enjoy what you see in the trailer and look forward to it, and Audrey has some other things going on as well with it. So you can check that out at the end. You've done some opera roles for us, some singing from our stage. And while you were talking about performing at the Sanfilippo Estate, one thing that caught my attention was, the grandeur that's all around you. But I've always found when I'm up on stage just telling people about the place, there's an intimacy to that room that you don't get in many venues. Do you feel that when you're on our stage? The audience is right on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's exactly what I mean. That direct connection that's free of any barriers, which again, because of the grandeur of the estate, having that combination of grandeur with intimacy, honestly, I have never experienced that anywhere else that I've performed, which is why it is such a singular and special place to perform. And yes, because, you really can see those audience members and you can really look directly at them. And I know also for the Christmas concerts that I would do with Dave Wickerham, we would do this piece, the Christmas Waltz, which I'm sure many of you know. And of course, if you don't know Dave, you should just check out the YouTube channel for the Sanfilippos. He is one of the most famous, one of the best theater organists anywhere in the world. And so, of course, when we would play and have these concerts, I would just be, kind of a little guest on his large program. And so he would continue to play interludes and I would go down into the audience and find somebody to dance the waltz with me. So, we had these ways of breaking the barriers. Also at the end of those Christmas concerts, we would sing together. We would sing a couple of hymns together, Silent Night being one of them. And that was always so special. And you really do feel like you are personally connected with everybody in that audience. And to me, it never really felt like Christmas until I had done those concerts. And so, yes, absolutely. It's one of my most favorite places to sing.
Our good friend, bass baritone, William Powers, who's sung there many times, and you've sung with him,
mm-hmm.
He always tells me that room is like singing in the shower.
Yeah.
He said it's like singing in the shower for a normal person, but for an opera person, it's the room is what makes the concert for him.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely.
You've done a number of things at our place. One was a recent recording of Songs from Sac Prairie. There's a modern composer, Ronald William Hill,
mm-hmm.
A friend of yours, who actually wrote some songs for you.
Yes. And, I have to say, even back when I was doing my bachelor's degree, people had these aspirations. Oh, I want to sing at the Met. Oh, I want to sing at La Scala, which of course I certainly, aspired to those things as well. But I remember taking an art song class and learning about these relationships that these singers had with composers of the day. And when I found out about that, I thought, oh gosh, to me, this is the pinnacle of this artistry that would be so special and so meaningful to have. And so I'm so lucky as an artist to say that I do have wonderful relationships with many composers, but there's nothing quite like the relationship I have with Ronald William Hill, who is a composer in Chicago. I actually met his wife over 10 years ago on a Chicago City bus. We were complete strangers, but it was the start of the route. So we were the only two people on the bus, and we just were both kind of in that mood where we struck up a conversation, and she learned I was an opera singer and I learned that her husband was a composer. And so we exchanged information, and as they say, the rest is history. Yes, he has dedicated a piece to me. And also I was fortunate enough to be the one that premiered his song cycle, which a song cycle is it's a series of songs. It could really be any kind of combination, any kind of way that a composer wants to string some pieces together, tie them together to create, a mini story. And in Ron's case, he has this song cycle called the Songs of Sac Prairie. And Sac Prairie is a half made up, half real place that the poet August Derleth, who is kind of the standing poet laureate of Wisconsin, and kind of known as the Thoreau of the Midwest. So he wrote about nature. He very he was, during his career, he was a Guggenheim Fellow. People said, oh, come to New York. This is where you need to be. He actually said, no, I want to stay and write and live where I know. I love my rural area in Wisconsin. And so he wrote about the people there and about the environment there. And these are the pieces that Ron has set. And this song cycle is a book-ended program. It has a prologue piece and an epilogue piece. And then in the middle are these 6 vignettes of different people that he grew up with. It's kind of a, names have been changed to protect the innocent or the guilty kind of a situation, which is why I say it was a made up place and a not made up place. And so that's what these pieces are. And we were so fortunate. The Sanfilippos and Greg were so gracious, and they allowed us to record this song cycle with, as Greg mentioned, William Powers, a dear friend of mine, and who I really consider to be a mentor. And we shared this song cycle because some of the vignettes within the cycle are men and some are women. And so, so Bill took on those, the men vignettes, and I do the ladies. And it's just a lovely cycle. It's if any of you are familiar with Spoon River, that kind of writing, or Our Town, it's very much that Americana sense of things, but in a very real and relatable way. I would say that Ron's style is very Aaron Copland-esque. So although he definitely has a style all his own, it is immediately you can say, oh gosh, this is an American composer in all of the ways that we love. So it's very accessible music. And we were so fortunate to be able to record it within actually the performance space at the Sanfilippo estate. It's perfect for recording classical voices as well. And we have had great success with this. Actually, because we had this recording, Ron was able to show it to a colleague of his in Ohio. And this past February, we premiered the orchestral version of this song cycle with the Worcester Symphony. So, which definitely would not have happened had we not been able to utilize the estate for that recording. So every little step is taking us, one step further.
Well, it's our pleasure. Opera is very similar to theater organ. It doesn't get as much respect as it deserves. And so that's part of our mission, is to take those types of things that normally are sort of on the back burner just because they're not, as popular as other stuff today, and just sort of showcase them for their value.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful part of your career. And looking at your bio, I came across something you did for children. You did an anti-bullying opera. And in today's world, it's so appropriate. I've got a number of friends that are in that line of help, working on anti-bullying programs. So can you tell me a little bit about an anti-bullying opera that you did?
Absolutely. Yes. So this was while I was a resident artist with the Shreveport Opera in Louisiana, which is, I believe it is the country's oldest, if not just one of the oldest regional companies in America. So it has an amazing tenure. And this opera was called The Final Word. And it was geared towards kind of upper middle school age children. And it was actually about cyberbullying, which I thought was so fitting and so interesting. And actually I played I was the bully. And so my aria during this opera was actually in front of a laptop, because I was, singing about, I'm going to, crop some Photoshop, some pictures of this other girl that I don't like, and really humiliate her online. And it went over extremely well that year. We also did an opera for younger children that was also, it was anti-bullying, and it was a wonderful production. It was actually The Ugly Duckling, but it was kind of reimagined as an anti-bullying, as you can imagine, with that story. But also it had some wonderful additions with literacy, was also a big part of that, if you can imagine. So those were wonderful operas to do. And honestly, again, when I was thinking back about my most meaningful experiences that I've had as an artist, certainly performances with the Shreveport Opera came to mind. In Louisiana, there are kind of some significant areas that need, I would say, more support within the public schools. Music definitely is one of them. The first time that I performed these programs for the children in Shreveport, I was just struck by the hunger and the wonder in these children's eyes. They were just hungry for the arts, so hungry for music. And it was like they just couldn't believe what was happening in front of their eyes. And come to find out afterwards, it's because we were possibly the only music that they were going to be receiving that year in their schools. And so learning that, and of course thinking, okay, well, we need to do something about that. But at the same time, realizing, wow, we are really helping a true need for these children to get that exposure to the arts. And so if I might just kind of give an additional little plug for Shreveport Opera, they do amazing things, and please go check them out, shreveportopera.org. So many opera companies throughout the country and orchestras, all of these arts organizations, we've taken quite a beating this year. And so they could certainly use your love and support as well.
Well, thank you for that. One of the oldest opera companies is in Louisiana, and that just kind of blows my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But what I love about the arts is it's always full of surprises like that. And kids having that hunger for opera, something they probably haven't been exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
To me, you start at the pinnacle with them, with the opera works. Having worked with you many times now, and my favorite thing about you is your connection with our audiences. Oh. And after the shows, folks come up to me and they ask me questions about you. Oh. It's because I think your personality transfers so well. But during opera, you get to play other personalities. Do you have a favorite role that you've played over the years that is different than your regular personality, or the same as your regular personality? Is that a more favorite thing?
That's a wonderful question. So as a mezzo soprano, which I am, one of the most, I would say, fun and entertaining things for our voice category is that oftentimes we actually play young men or boys. And the reason behind that is that if you think about timbre, which means kind of the tonal color, if that makes sense, when a composer is writing an opera, many times, if there's a young boy, say like Hansel and Gretel, right? The opera Hansel and Gretel, for an example, so we have a male role, but we have a huge orchestra that we need to sing over. And so we can't really cast an actual boy in that role. And if we wrote that role for a tenor or a bass or a baritone, it would sound too mature, right? It would sound too like an adult man. And so what composers will do is they will actually write those roles for mezzo sopranos, because our voices, they're a little bit lower. The timbre is a little bit richer, maybe a little bit darker. So you get that sense of, a little bit of more masculine, maybe in a way, certainly as compared to, say, a highlight soprano. And so just using that Hansel and Gretel as an example, that's exactly what that composer, Engelbert Humperdinck, did. He wrote Gretel as a very light soprano voice, and then he wrote Hansel for a mezzo soprano. So playing those kind of parts they're just so much fun. I mean, really, you just get to unleash your inner child. And, of course, there's kind of a lot to learn about maybe how to move a little bit differently than you would if you were playing a female part. But those kind of roles have been the most, I would say, just the most fun. And certainly the most meaningful role to date of my career has been the role of Mrs. de Rocher, again with Shreveport Opera, when I returned as a main stage artist after having been a resident artist, and that is in the opera Dead Man Walking. I think we all, maybe it's been a while since the movie was released, but the movie with Sean Penn, and it's based on a true story. Sister Helen Prejean is still alive and well, and really out there doing what she believes in. And so this opera was written, about her life. And Mrs. de Rocher is the mother of the inmate who this murderer who was really committed this heinous act. And I can tell you, I really wanted to do right by her, by this role. I felt it was so far removed, thankfully, from anything that I knew. But I didn't want to make it a caricature. I didn't want to just write her off and say, oh, she's just awful, this mother of this murder. I really felt like there was more there. And so delving into that idea of guilt and grief and disbelief, as to the heinous act that her son had committed, it really actually brought me to a whole new level personally on what forgiveness means, on how guilt can manifest in really ugly and unexpected ways. And I tell you, it really personally kind of helped me heal from some things in my own past. And so for me, that was the most meaningful role. And Sister Helen was actually present with us for this performance, and her words of support. Yeah, I mean, it was just incredible. So a once in a lifetime experience for sure.
That had to be a little nerve-wracking when she's in the audience.
Yes.
But I think the pleasure of meeting her and the honor of meeting her would have settled you down for that role.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Audrey, it is always lovely to talk to you. We've Come a Long Way, Ladies is a program that the Sanfilippo Foundation will be putting on next year with you, so folks can come see that. We don't have dates yet. We're working our way through the pandemic, and hopefully things get better. It has been a pleasure to talk with you and learn from you. Opera is a discipline that is so worthy of the Sanfilippo Foundation and our setting. It is just the pinnacle of singing, and we are proud to have you and others come in and basically do what our machines do, but live in person. And it's always been a pleasure to work with you. Folks, at the end of the video, we will have the link to Audrey's program. I encourage you to check it out. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. It's been an honor. Always so lovely to see you.
Thank you. Thanks, folks.